Our second speaker is Nadine Hawkins. She's bringing us new trends in decorative hardware for cabinetry. Nadine is an entrepreneur who has founded Hawkins Interiors, a company specializing in renovations and window coverings. Nadine has 18 years of experience in the industry since completing her certification program at the University of Calgary in 2006. She's held sales management roles since 2011, including 5 years at Flowform, 8 years in business development at Legacy Kitchens, and most recently at Berenson Incorporated. Nadine also serves currently as the NKBA President for the Prairie Provinces Chapter. Please join me in welcoming Nadine Hawkins to the stage.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to say thanks to Jackie and Shauna for the presentation. That was really good. And I will actually talk a little bit about aging in place with hardware. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, it's like, well, decorative hardware, it's important for the cabinets, but there sometimes I find is not a lot of thought put into it. So I'm really excited that Decor has asked me to present to you all today about, why would you choose certain hardware, what to look for. And there is a lot of different things that, it's not just a pretty part of the kitchen. So a little bit about myself. I know there was a little bit of an overview on that. One of the things that I've got into this industry, I was in the cattle industry before, which is completely different than the interior design industry. But I really became a passionate person when it comes to design. And one of the things that I think is most important is function. Again, we've talked about function over form and things like that. So this is kind of where a lot of this has come in for me. And so if I can just share a little bit about what I think you guys, little tidbits that might be able to help you with your clients coming forward. So just going to talk a little bit about hardware basics. A lot of people are like, well, I know it's a cabinet pull-up. But it's a little bit more than that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the materials, the casting, and why you would choose different hardware, different brands, different attributes to the actual hardware itself. So common materials that we use for the decorative hardware is we have aluminum, we have zinc, we have brass. We have different materials, natural materials such as stainless steel, and then we also have wood, leather, and copper, as well as glass. So with all these different things, there are the different attributes, which I'm just going to briefly touch on. So aluminum, you're going to be seeing a lot more aluminum in actual hardware coming forward because people are craving more design. And aluminum is more malleable. It's also lighter weight, so when it comes down to shipping from other countries where most of it's manufactured, it's a lot less expensive for the actual shipping costs. Zinc is probably the most common casting material. It's very stable, very easy to work with, as well as very cost effective. So the first two options are really what you see mostly in everyday hardware. The next one is brass. Brass is obviously a little bit heavier, as well as it's very durable. When you have a zinc versus, let's say it's just a standard deep hole, and if you have the difference between, you'll definitely notice a weight difference with the brass casting. Stainless steel is the next thing. You will see this more for outdoor kitchens. Very good for of areas with salt water out in coastal regions, as well as outdoor kitchens. Copper is probably my favorite because I love the fact that you can have living finishes. It's also an antibacterial component to that, as well as it's highly corrosion resistant. The issues with brass and stainless steel and copper is the price. So some people don't go into those price ranges, but again, it's something that you use every day. So sometimes I always hear this, well, that's too expensive, or I don't want to use that, my clients won't choose that. Well, we'll talk a little bit about why maybe you want to change and elevate from a standard deep hole that's made out of aluminum or zinc. Wood also is starting to be used a little bit more. I'm seeing some people, like the cabinet manufacturers, are actually manufacturing the handles so that it looks like it's just kind of going into it, but it's still giving a function for the customer to use to function in their kitchen. And then glass. Glass is actually a really good option. It's easy to clean, non-porous, and also, but again, it's a little bit more on the higher end of the spectrum for cost. So one of the things that you need to look for when you are selecting hardware for your customers or for your projects is the casting. It does make a difference. And that's actually not exactly what you're paying for. So the casting part is really honestly something that is important, but what's really important is the finish that goes on top of that cast. There's many methods for casting, and I could talk about it for a little bit too long, so I'm not even going to go into that. But the finish is what's really, really important. And that's actually what you're really paying for. So when you see something from a lesser quality, more mass-produced item, the finish will not wear well. You might have some imperfections very quickly in the kitchen, especially with high use. I know with fingernails, with rings, things like that, or just even bumping along when you're doing tasks in the kitchen. Those are really, really important to make sure that you have a good high quality finish so that the customer will have longevity in the kitchen. Because as we know, a lot of people don't change their kitchens or any of their cabinetry out for, a cycle from anywhere from 10 to 20 years. One of the things I also think is really important, and this also comes down to ergonomics, is how does it feel in the hand? Is there any sharp edges? Is there anything that makes, it hard to get in? What's a projection away from the cabinet? Those are all really important things to consider with your customers and on your projects to make sure that your end user is happy with how it feels in the hand. And I will say that there's a lot of hardware out there that honestly shouldn't be out there because it's hollow in the back. And the reason why it's hollow in the back is it's less material, less expensive, and it's honestly cheap. And then, of course, we'll talk about price a little bit and the warranty. I don't know very many companies out there that will give lifetime warranties to their product. But as far as the warranties, you do want a good quality warranty. Is there going to be an issue of like matte black, for example? Has anybody had issues with matte black? Yeah, lots of people have issues with matte black. What kind of warranty does that cover? I know that one particular company doesn't warranty any of their matte black product. If it scratches or doesn't wear well, is that really a good choice for your customer? And is that a good choice? But there are some that will warranty a matte black. Same with living finishes. Is your customer going to be happy with the patina or the change over time? So there's lots of little different things that we have to worry about as far as the warranty and making sure that your customers know what they're getting. But it also does come down to price. And I should have actually flipped these around, but price is actually really important because it's not going to fit the budget. But we'll talk a little bit more about how to get some of that more expensive, if you will, more higher end into your projects. So what is coming for the trends? So I'm going to touch, some of these have actually been around for a little bit, so bear with me. But the current trends I'm going to talk about are the mid-century modern, geometric, industrial farmhouse, mixed materials. And then our new trends are, we're going into more color, organic shapes and texture, and then also handle-free. So we'll talk a little bit about each of these and why or why not you would choose these. Mid-century modern. So obviously this has been around for a little bit. What I really like about the mid-century modern is that it's got slow, gentle curves, feels really nice, very aesthetically pleasing for the eye, as well as it's got, it has basically a different slender accents. And so it's very minimalistic. And you see, I know it's a very big trend right now. Looks great with flat panel, and it looks great with wood. So there's lots of different things. And then you can be really creative with mid-century modern, I think. Geometric. So for example, with the geometric, you're seeing a lot of people that are like, just don't want a standard D-pull. I don't want a bar pull. I want something that's creative. Geometrics are actually really popular right now. And people just want a little bit of style that's something different. Industrial farmhouse. This is one that's kind of all over the map a little bit, but typically you have the dark metallic finishes, or the matte blacks, raw natural elements. There's going to be maybe some rivets. There's going to be lots of edges. One of the drawbacks of this particular trend is that it's harder to clean because there's more crevices and things like that. So what I'm seeing is with this little bit of a movement, people are kind of shying away from the industrial hardware look, but they will incorporate a more simple handle, but it's more into the actual cabinetry. Mixed materials. I'm seeing more wood, more glass, obviously color, lots of golds, lots of black. But combining all these different elements actually gives you a little bit of sense of warmth. Thank you. Gives you a sense of warmth and natural look. And I think one of the things that came through COVID is it was funny. One of my colleagues was saying, oh, I really, really think that, with having to be sanitary and sanitizing and all that stuff, we're going to have rarely clean lines. The exact opposite happened after we got out of the pandemic. People were craving texture, warmth. We were tired of sanitizing everything and everything being so clean. We needed something, and also it just makes you feel better to have some of these textures. So this is where a lot of these mixed materials have come in, and it's great just to see different elements, and also in your kitchens, not necessarily in your hardware, but different wood species, painted, black, white, all these different trends have come out, and I think it's been great. And also biophilia, there's lots of great things that have come out in the last few years just to kind of warm up and cozy up our lives. Color is actually something that I love to see. We've embraced, I will say that I've never been a brushed nickel fan, so I'm really happy that we've kind of gotten out of that trend. But it's really fun to see a lot of different colors and being creative with what's out there. So as white will always be in vogue, it's nice to have some little bit pop of color, and it's something that you can change out over time. Whereas, having a colored cabinet, well, that's a little bit harder to change. So sometimes this is actually a good option, is to put color into the hardware. Organic, this is kind of a fun one. I like to see something that's a little bit different, and like leather, for example, a lot of people are afraid of it because it's something you wouldn't want to use because it will definitely change quickly with, our hands and usage. But it actually looks really beautiful. But your customer has to be really willing to go down that road and accept those changes, and it's not going to look like that forever. But also just, again, the organic shapes, natural materials using in like rock, different textures and stuff like that. And it goes really well with the biophilic design. We also have a lot of textures as far as going into striations and the knurled. Obviously, the knurled is really big going right now. But it also gives a tactile and visual difference on what the cabinets can look like, because anything you want to, it's limitless in what you can do. So, and then also the living finishes. I think living finishes are a lot of fun, and they are gaining popularity. There's a couple companies that I know that's what they specialize in, and you get these beautiful bronze textures, or the brighter brasses and stuff like that. So there's a lot of creativity that can go into the living finishes, but just thinking outside the box. Touch latches, or sorry, not the latches like showing up there. Those are actually really gaining popularity. I'm seeing a lot of those cabinet latches, which is really cool. Just something a little bit different. One of the things I'm also seeing is backplates. Backplates really kind of give you a visual difference, but also the fact that it's protecting the cabinet behind. So I think that's another trend that's really, you see a lot more of the backplates that are available today. Handleless. So there's some options going handleless. One of the things that, has anybody ever experienced, like the touch latch on the bottom, and then if you're like me and a leaner, you're going to pop that open with your hip or whatever. So I really don't recommend that on the bottom cabinet. So it's really nice that we have these options with the Gola profiles or the handleless. There's different options for the handleless profiles. But it gives you a good streamlined look, and it doesn't distract from the actual cabinetry. So just talk a little bit about the flat Gola. The flat Gola there's some advantages and disadvantages to the flat Gola profiles. As you can see, the Gola profile runs all the way along the base cabinets underneath the countertop. There is a disadvantage to that, is that it takes away space from the drawer or the door that's below it. But the nice advantage is it's really nice and seamless. It's beautiful and very easy to use, very easy to keep clean. And people want that seamless look. It looks great. There's a couple different profiles. So you can see that we have the J and the C profiles. And you can see that you also have to route out the gable on there. So when you have to do that, that's a little bit more work for the installer or the manufacturer. But again, you do have that seamless look all the way around. This system here, what we have is it's actually put onto the drawer or the door front. Those in particular, what you do is it'll have a number in the actual title of the product, and it says 6 millimeters. You mill it down 6 millimeters, and it's just put on with a clip system and some adhesive to keep it in place. But that's a really great option if you don't want to take the space out of, like, lose space in drawers and doors. It's also a very economical option for customers. Installers can actually even put this together. And there is some options as well as profiles, whether it's angled or whether it's flat. So those are, again, we're definitely seeing this as a trend. This is everywhere, and it's becoming more popular, especially out in the coastal regions in BC, and more modern areas, even like Kelowna. Calgary's kind of getting on the train, and then I'm starting to see more of that actually happening here in Saskatchewan and Manitoba as well. So what should designers recommend? Does anybody here really have like a system that they do to sell the hardware? What are you going to tell your customer? Like, do you just leave it to the customer? Do you help them and guide them? I know a lot of people don't like that part of their job because it's a lot of work, and customers don't really know what they want. So it can be a challenge. So as a designer, you got to do your customer a favor and let them pick something, or go guide them down the road to good quality and good craftsmanship. Make sure it feels good in the hand. Make sure that it's going to last, because there's nothing worse than having something that doesn't last. So consider the finish and feel. Is it something that they're going to want to clean? Is it something that they're going to, especially when we're talking about aging in place, is it easy for them to grab? With the finish and feel, I think it's you touch it every day. You touch it constantly every day. I'm going to say the faucet and in your kitchen or your bathroom, as well as your hardware, has to be comfortable. And that's really, really important for your customer to have a good product at the end of the day and be happy in their kitchen. Budget. I know that a lot of it comes down to budget. We talk a little bit, I don't know, I've been around and talking to some customers and talking about allowances, and I always have this conversation. What's your allowance for your customer? And I get everything from $5 to $20, $25 wholesale. The one that's $5, she goes, well, I have a hard time selling the high-end hardware. I said, well, why? What's your budget? And she says, oh, it's $5. And I said, well, so when your customers, how do they react when you're trying to get them to move up to a next level of hardware? And she says, well, they always feel like, oh, you want more money. You want more money. A lot of customers don't have a clue how much hardware actually costs in the scope of the project. So consider elevating your budget. And that way, they're not being nickeled and dimed. They feel like, oh, I can have this beautiful, this is gorgeous. I can have that, versus just something that's pretty standard. So that's something to consider when you are dealing with your customers, and give them more option. Finishing touches. Think outside the box. Not everything has to match. If there's a piece of furniture that's just off in the kitchen, let's say a dining room, have something fun that kind of goes with what's going on in the kitchen or the bathroom or the wardrobe or powder room or whatever. Just have a little bit of fun with it. And not everything has to match in the house. So that's one thing I like to see, is a lot of creativity, and give your customers more option for sure. So we did talk a little bit about this already. Is it suitable for the demographic? Do you have small children in the house? Are there people, is this their forever home? Aging in place. There's lots of different options to consider for the type of hardware. And I will say, like, recessed type of hardware is really difficult for seniors. Don't work, think about how they're going to use it. Is it going to be comfortable for them? Is it going to be easy for them to use? And does it go with the concept? I've seen some things where it's like, oh, beautiful, modern and stuff, and then they'll have something super traditional. It's kind of like, well, that looks okay, but could have been a little bit better. Could have been thought out a little bit more. So, and I don't have to tell, there's about a lot of brilliant people in here, and we don't really have to talk about, the final concept. You guys are good at it, but just always keep that in mind for choosing hardware. Sorry, I don't know. I can't.
Thank you, Nadine. Actually, one question did come up. And just a reminder, scan those QR codes, get your questions in. How long do you project the popularity of the Gola handle in North America? Can it be considered a timeless handle option?
I honestly think it can. a lot of people don't want handles. They want it very easy and clean in their kitchens. And I think it is really starting to come, but it's been around in Europe for 20 some years and it's not going away. So I honestly think that this is something that's happening and it's going to be a trend for a very long time.
When you mentioned, the kitchen replacement cycle was 10 to 20 years, I'm thinking, well, how can we speed that up? Everybody in this room would win if it was 5 years instead of 10 or 20.
Yeah.
So I don't have an answer for that. And I'm sure you don't either, but something that I thought about. So thank you, Nadine.
Yep, thank you.